to the Bank of Spain. It's a real pleasure and honor to host once again the Germán Bernácer Prize. As you perfectly know, Germán Bernácer was chief economist of the bank, or director of the research department. Angel, our chief economist now, should of course look at what he did, monetary theories in particular. And of course, the connection between the prize and the Bank of Spain has always been very, very close. Immaculada, as you perfectly know, we are very happy to have this event here again. My plan is basically to remain silent for most of the meeting, because we have the pleasure to have the Vice President of the ECB, Luis. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you here, who will give the laudatory speech to the winner of this year's prize. Luis, please.
Thank you very much, dear Paulo, dear Guillermo, ladies and gentlemen, dear Matteo. We are meeting today to award the Germán Bernácer Prize for outstanding contributions in the fields of macroeconomics and finance to young European economist Matteo Maggiori. This 21st edition of the prize honors Matteo for his influential research on international finance and macroeconomics, including asset pricing and exchange rate dynamics. I am delighted to be here today to celebrate his achievements with you. Matteo's research sheds light on many important aspects of international macroeconomics and finance under a common overarching theme: the role of imperfect financial markets. A non-exhaustive list of his research includes the international financial system, reserve currencies, tax havens, global capital flows, and portfolio investment, exchange rate dynamics, expectations, and bubbles. His research effectively combines theory with data, and it often provides key insights for economic and monetary policy. In the decade since he graduated from the Haas School of Business at the University of California, Berkeley, Matteo has already made a profound mark on the profession and earned wide recognition, reflected in numerous prizes and awards. His work is widely cited and published in the top academic journals. Since 2019, Matteo has been teaching as professor of finance at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Today, I would like to highlight some of Matteo's key contributions. But let me start with one caveat. Matteo is very productive, far too productive for me to do justice to all his work in my brief remarks today. So I will inevitably have to skip over much of his work. Not everyone in the room may know that not so long ago, Matteo was a trader of foreign exchange and interest rates. Guillermo has indicated that at JP Morgan. This experience enabled him to see firsthand how financial markets work, and it has been a source of inspiration for Matteo's choice of research topics, which are always of practical relevance. Matteo's background seems to underpin his approach to research, which often treats traditional theoretical assumptions in international macroeconomics with a healthy dose of skepticism. In one of his first papers, for example, he observes that exchange rates rarely absorb shocks in the way economic theory typically assumes. This paper, co-authored with Xavier Gabaix, nicely illustrates Matteo's focus on international macroeconomics with imperfect financial markets. It stresses the financial determinants of exchange rates, namely financiers' limited risk-bearing capacity, and its role in explaining a number of puzzles and phenomena in international finance. Another notable area of Matteo's work is his research on the functioning of the international financial system and the role of reserve currencies, in particular the US dollar. Matteo is also exceptionally creative in using microdata to pin down the workings of the international monetary and financial system. In a paper on capital allocation, he exposes a home currency bias in US bond holdings. Lenders prefer bonds denominated in their home currency, but care little about where the borrower resides. On the borrowing side, all but the very large firms issue bonds only in their home currency because of the investor's home currency bias. Firms borrow very little from abroad. The big exception to this pattern is the United States. Almost all investors appear willing to lend in US dollars, meaning that even small US firms borrow not only from domestic, but also from foreign sources. The small firms thus benefit particularly in their home currency is an international currency because it gives them easy access to the global capital markets. US financial markets get attention in any study of global capital flows. There is a good reason for this, the special role they play. But there is another reason, which is not a particularly good one, namely data availability. Over the years, the network of cross-country financial links has become increasingly complex. International funding is often channeled through intermediaries in tax haven countries, which blurs the link between borrowing and lending economies in the financial statistics, and with it, the measurement of the international transmission of shocks. Despite the great challenges, Matteo and his co-authors took on the challenge of disentangling the investment positions of offshore-like financial centers within the euro area. They show, for example, that the euro area is less financially integrated than officially data suggests. The Global Capital Allocation Project, to which Matteo contributed, takes this exercise to a global scale by following corporate ownership chains to derive consolidated portfolio holdings. It uncovered that the bilateral portfolio investment of developed economies in large emerging economies is much larger than commonly thought. Before I give you the impression that Matteo is a pure international macroeconomist, let me highlight another, quite different, area of his work, the economics of very long discounting. Investment decisions in the fight against climate change hinge crucially on discounting cash flows far out in the future. Due to compounding small differences in the discount rate, can determine whether a project will be implemented or not. But we have very little guidance on what the proper discount rate might be. To help us select the appropriate one, Matteo and his co-authors examine information on very long-term leases of 100 or more years maturity in the United Kingdom and Singapore, and compare the price of such leases with the price of buying similar properties, with the price of owning without a time limit. They show that people care quite a lot about cash flows in the distant future. The implied very long-run discount rate is only 2.6% per year. Discount rates for such long horizons are highly relevant for weighing up the costs and benefits of projects spanning more than one generation, such as those related to the climate and the environment. Given the evidence of climate change, I do not have to stress the importance of this research. Matteo and his co-authors make the important point that investments in mitigating global warming and its effects should be priced like an insurance. An insurance is most valuable in the bad states of the world, and thus the appropriateness discount rate must be below the risk-free rate at all horizons. The long-run discount rate issue has direct implications for the overall strategy to fight global warming, and this goes far beyond economics. Matteo's latest working paper, released just some weeks ago, studies the interface of geopolitics and economics. It describes how dominance in key industries, such as finance or information technology, enables a hegemon country to extract rents from small open economies. The framework adds a strategic aspect to the economic underpinnings of geopolitical power. Let me conclude. In this little tour through Matteo's research, I hope I have conveyed just how much he has expanded our knowledge in an impressive range of areas. His topical and seminal work is international macroeconomics at its best, innovative, data-driven, and providing lessons for policymakers. Matteo, we all look forward to your research and new insights in the coming years. I am delighted to congratulate you, Matteo, on winning the 2022 Germán Bernácer Prize for promoting economic research in Europe.
Yes, please, Matteo.
So first of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Governor Hernandez de Cos for hosting us, to Vice Presidents de Guindos, and to the Chairman de Heza. I will give some brief remarks. This is not an academic seminar, so you don't get to ask me questions. I mostly get to say thanks to a lot of people. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for awarding me the Bernácer Prize. It's very generous for the words that you expressed about my work in reviewing my contribution to international macroeconomics and finance. I'm really very honored by the award. In writing this speech, also gave me an opportunity to reflect on both my own career and the social value of these prizes. And I'll start from my own career. So my own path in academia was unusual, mainly because I got to know that academia existed very late. Well after my undergraduate studies, I knew that there were professors. I thought that there were people that taught. I didn't know about academic research. Most of all, I didn't know that you could make a living out of this, and that it consisted of going to the office and thinking about questions of great social value with your friends. For me, this was life-changing. It moved my path towards what I still consider the best job in the world. And today I'm as excited to do work as I was on the first day of my PhD, which also I had to reflect is 15 years ago. And I hope to be just as excited 20 years from now. The reality is that I only think of this as a job in as much as it pays the bills. But it's a vocation. If you got the research bug, you're not going to want to do anything else or think about anything else. And so, part of the value of these prizes is also just being able to communicate this to the general public. And so I also wanted to reflect on the Bernácer Prize itself. The track record is very impressive. We have actually some previous winners here in the room. And I recall as a very young researcher witnessing my co-authors, or what would become my co-authors, Emmanuel Fari and Xavier Gabec's winning previous editions of this prize. And I was truly happy about their amazing contributions. But as I grew older, I realized that the value of these prizes is very little, the brief moment of happiness for the people that get it. It's wonderful to have a laudation speech. It gives you a very nice high, but it passes. I think the real social value of these prizes is being able to communicate to the general public what we do. It's not always easy, because economics, with its rigor, our debates, proceeds incrementally. And it's not always easy to make the rest of the world understand what it is that we do. And so the prizes are useful because they shed light to an entire area, not just on the winner. And the winner is just sitting momentarily at the top of that area. But it's really a shedding about the methodology and what we do and why it's valuable. Now, of course, that also means that it's a team sport. So in listening to Vice President de Guindos' speech, I'm reminded just how many people I have to thank about my work. He generously called them co-authors, but they really are my partners. They're a major part of that work. So Jesse Schrager and Brent Neiman and Antonio Coppola co-founded a lab with me a few years ago, the Global Capital Allocation Project, which really started with just 3 people in a room. And now it's a much larger team and a much larger effort, including collaborations with the ECB. It's a cliche to say that this is shared work. But really, I couldn't do what I do without my co-authors. And it's not just the people that get their name on the paper, it's all the young people that help with the data, help with the lab. This is a large team effort, and I just get to be here and receive the prize, but really they share in as much of it as I do. Similarly, my PhD student, both current and former, are a huge part of my intellectual life. In fact, 2 of them, Antonio Coppola and Chris Clayton, I'm very happy that they're now my co-authors. And finally, you mentioned some of my finance work. Johannes Strobel and Stefano Giglio have been my constant partner for more than 10 years in that work. And they certainly equally share, and probably more than me, into the quality of that work. So let me finally turn to the Bernácer Prize, specifically on its focus on macroeconomics and finance in Europe. Now, that one has a very particular social value attached to it, because in the European context, research, particularly macro research, tends to get undervalued. And instead, it should be quite the opposite, because international macroeconomics and finance are at the core of probably one of the largest economic experiments we've had, the euro area. And so we have much to contribute to making the euro area work. And it's fair to say that making the union work to generate broad prosperity is still a work in progress. We're working on the capital market union, we're working on the fiscal aspects, we're working on many of the frictions that have prevented us to do the very best. Certainly, many things have already gone well. And so yesterday, I had the pleasure of debating Philip Lane, who is both the first winner of the Bernácer Prize from 2001 and the chief economist at the ECB. And actually is somebody that has inspired a large part of my work, because he was very early, together actually with Alain, doing work on international financial statistics and in macro. And it was kind of interesting to see that 20 years later, we're still making advances, but there is a long line of work that has made economic policy more informed and better. And so I think that the prize is really about this, and relatively little about the three of us that might have won it over the years. So if you're a young person listening to this speech or reading it online, and this pushes you to go, look at the list of the winners, figure out what they did in research, their careers, and it gets you to do some research, then I think really the Bernácer is very important and valuable. And I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Matteo, Professor Maggiori, for your insightful words. Of course, congratulations again for a very well deserved. You were late, but you were very good. And of course, thank you very much to all of you for the attendance to the ceremony. Thank you.